Today is the fourth day of the government shutdown. On Friday, the Senate failed to pass spending bills again, and Congress adjourned with no votes scheduled. And here to discuss where things stand now is Dr. Garrett Martin, Hurst Senior Professional Lecturer and the co-director of the Transatlantic Police Center at American University. Good morning.
Good morning.
Tell me what your response is to this latest failure to reach a deal in Congress as government workers' paychecks are on hold.
Well, I think it's frustrating, and I think it's probably indicative that we are likely to be in the long haul for the shutdown. I mean, keep in mind that the last shutdown prior to this one lasted 34 days, and I think there seems to be little appetite and little desires on either side to compromise. So I think for government workers who are currently furloughed, I think they should expect no easy resolution or no speedy resolution.
Yeah, I'm wondering, when do you think Congress is going to pick the ball up again since they have now adjourned?
I think I would expect that we might see movement in the next few weeks. I assume that once the political costs start to build up, and the economic costs, the estimate from the last shutdown in 2018, 2019, was that for every week where the government was shut down, the American GDP was dropping by about 0.1%. So I think the increased pressure from the public will take time, but I think that will be a key element. As of now, I think both sides believe that they still have enough to gain from the shutdown rather than to try to compromise.
Let's talk about the potential impact, because a key issue here is extending these health care subsidies. If that does not happen, what would the impact be on the American public, the people who depend on these?
I think the estimate here is that with the, on these subsidies, that the healthcare premium costs are likely to go up for a number of millions of Americans, and particularly the more vulnerable Americans. So I think that's something that is very concrete at a time when the cost of living has still been going up significantly over the last few years, and inflation remains, while certainly not as high as it was 2 or 3 years ago, it remains still relatively high. So I think concretely, this is going to be a real pocketbook challenge for a number of Americans and more vulnerable Americans. Additionally, I think some of those most affected are at least in red states. So I think it will also be interesting to see how that plays out politically in a number of states across the next few weeks.
What, in your opinion, is the best approach that Congress needs to consider in reaching this compromise and ending this shutdown?
Well, I think at this point, it's become very difficult to pass budgets and to pass budgets on time. I think finding a continuing resolution that gives sufficient time, that gives enough leeway to be able to engage in negotiations, I think will be important. But I think there are still elements here where the political realities are also, and the polarization are not really amenable for compromise. I think for the Democrats and for Chuck Schumer, I think a feeling that having not pushed for a fight in March hurt him and hurt the party. So I think that's also where the base is, and I think that's also difficult in those conditions for both parties to see compromise when their voters are not necessarily encouraging them to do so.
And now there's this threat of the mass layoffs. Would that be a prudent choice for the president?
Prudent, I think it depends in the eye of the beholder. I think from his perspective, or at least the impression that we have, looking from the outside in, is that it's a form of leverage, that it basically would inflict pain on Democratic states. We've seen the canceled energy projects were really targeted at blue states. So I think the strategy there on his angle might be to try and basically increase the cost of a shutdown on the Democratic Party. On the other hand, I think there is some reservation from what we understand among certain Republicans to continue to target government employees. I think the manner in which the cuts happened in the past were a little bit, let's say, chaotic on the Doge and Elon Musk. So I'm not sure there is necessarily appetite to go after popular government programs.
All right, that is Dr. Garrett Martin of American University. We thank you so much for joining us this morning.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.